In this episode, we're following the journey of a couple of first home buyers who have conquered the mountain in Melbourne, buying at a time when prices were starting to move and having to face a very real challenge of being priced out of their ideal suburb.
We're going to hear about the lessons they learned, whether their assumptions were right or wrong, the mistakes they made and those that were avoided, and ultimately how they sealed the deal.
Welcome to Your First Home Buyer Guide, the podcast for first home buyers who want to become educated home buyers.
I'm Veronica and that was Megan. We are two of Australia's most experienced buyer's agents and probably old enough to be your mum, which is a good thing because between us, we've got almost 50 years experience to share with you, and together we're going to cut through the BS and make sure that you're well informed so you make better decisions.
Now, when you get to the end of this episode, make sure you check out the website homebuyeracademy.com.au. Take a look at our course for first home buyers.
We've created an easy-to-follow course that builds on all of our professional experience to take you step by step through the whole home buying journey.
You'll know exactly what to do, when to do it, and be able to find your first home faster and easier with our guidance along the way.
It's the next best thing to having your very own buyer's agent.
Now, before we get into the interesting stuff, in this week's episode, there's the boring bit to do, and that's the disclaimer.
You, of course, know that nothing in this podcast is to be taken as personal advice. We always recommend getting the advice of an expert in their field who takes their time to personally understand your situation. Now, we've done our very best to ensure that the content is correct at the time of recording, but things change rapidly, so always check with the relevant government authority or your trusted advisors, or both, to get the most up-to-date information.
Nathan and James are Home Buyer Academy graduates, and we're so excited to be sharing their story today. Thank you so much for coming along. It's really great to see you, especially now that you've bought.
Nice to see you too. Thank you for having us, really.
It's quite a privilege. I really love having these conversations with people after they've purchased and when you've had a little bit of time to reflect on everything that you did and how it all went. So let's start at the beginning. When did you guys decide that you wanted to buy a property?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I've always wanted a home back when I was washing cars when I was 12. So it's been a bit of a long time coming for me personally. But yeah, James and I probably started thinking about it a couple of years back, and then a year ago or more, we solidly started looking.
I'm actually curious too, because you guys, when you came together, so Nathan's been thinking about buying a home since he was washing cars at the age of 12. And some of our graduates have been a bit the same. They've always thought about it. Were you the same, or you met Nathan and he's like, well, guess what? On my agenda is buying a home. And you think, well, shit, I've got to at least I got to step up here.
I've got to make a decision whether I'm in on this.
No, I think it's everyone's plan in life that you'll get a house eventually. So it was always there. It wasn't at the front of my priorities to start up with, but soon became.
That's good. Veronica and I talk about in our buyer's agency business that sometimes there's a bit of couples counselling that comes with property counselling as well. You know, when you sort of started the process and you were like, okay, all right, well, maybe we think about doing this. How did you talk about and plan for coming up with a deposit? Because money conversations can be some of the hardest ones.
Yes, that's definitely right. To be honest, Nathan's always been the more savvy saver. So I was the one that had to change a fair few things. It was kind of just realizing that this is a priority for us. And if we want it to happen, then things will have to change. And then Nathan is an accountant background, so that kind of helped. But yeah.
Is there any particular hacks that you could share that you went, right, this is a big game changer for us. We've really got to change our mindset about this thing that we spend? Or, you know, did you do jars? Did you do accounts where you're both putting in money into a specific, is there any sort of things that you can think of that really helped with that process?
I always did the Barefoot Investor thing, which is pretty simple. You have the different buckets in the accounts, and I've done that for ages. And then I think rolled that out to James and James started doing the same.
There's always a spender and a saver.
That's
Every
right.
relationship has a spender and a saver.
Yeah, that's it. So James started doing that as well. And I guess over time, we'd already built up a savings because we both have been savers across our life anyway. But then it's just kind of a matter of the last few years, I suppose we've been accelerating that a bit more. And yeah, it was really the buckets and just being more conscious. And then also get yourself a boyfriend that is a tight ass or an accountant.
And you're referring to yourself there, I assume.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
All right. So you need to make sure there is at least a saver and a budgeter in the relationship. You can't have two spenders. I think we can put that down to.
So you've got to have good discipline. You've also got to have a mindset that, well, we're going to do this and we can do this. And so that's how you apply yourself and why you apply yourself. But in addition to that, did you look to get help from either government incentives or from family, or where else did you look for assistance in that sort of deposit acquiring process?
Yeah, we definitely looked at all the schemes under the sun that we possibly could go for. Initially, our budget was very different. It's much lower. So we were looking at things like stamp duty exemptions, but then you get greedy, I suppose, when you start looking at property, and all of a sudden we really were outside of the range of anything that was worth or any of the grants or incentives. The only thing that we did end up using was the First Home Super Saver, which is a really, really confusing scheme that the government runs, and it helped us, but it's so complicated to understand. It's just hard, like explaining it to friends. It's really hard to explain it often. It's just not worth your time to do it. But I did understand it because I have a background in it. And so we did take advantage of that.
I've heard that. And that super saver scheme, I think there's pros and cons like everything. Rather than there being like income criteria or limits, there's certain times that once you withdraw that money, it can add to your taxable income and it can really change a lot of other things. But you also have to purchase the property within a specific time period once you withdraw the money. Yeah. Did that put you under a bit of pressure?
Not really, because it's now 24 months. So it's pretty relaxed, and also you choose when you want to release it as well. So it's in writing, it seems pretty scary, and it is scary because it's still a risk that you've got to run. But they have changed the rules in the last 12 months so that you can at least put it back in your savings if you don't end up buying a home. It's not the end of the world, but yeah, there are a lot of, I suppose there's some risk to consider.
It is complicated, and obviously we don't want to go into great detail on that specifically with this episode, but we first started meeting with you, Nathan, and the Campfire at the end of 2024. And then the property market started shifting very quickly in the beginning of 2025. And so all of a sudden, you're in a position where you're going for properties, but you're not getting them for a while until you finally did get the one. And we're going to get to that, and we're going to get to how that all works. But with regards to the Super Saver, and thankfully the rules have changed, but did that then make it tricky in terms of, well, you go for something, you think you're going to need the money for a deposit, and then of course, then you don't need it because somebody else paid more money for it. Is that one of the complications with that?
You can choose to release it now after you buy the house, so you don't have to do it beforehand. So we weren't in that position. I personally chose to release it early because I just didn't want to deal with the risk of not getting it. There was no reason to have that, but in my mind, it just felt risky. And so I did that, but James held off until afterwards.
Once we bought our house, that's when I released mine.
Yeah.
Had no issues with it, but can't speak for everyone, obviously.
So perhaps if you haven't got an accounting background, it would be good to seek some advice from somebody that really understands this.
Yeah, and I would probably say that a lot of accountants don't because they wouldn't deal with it day to day. So yeah, you'd have to definitely recommend speaking to someone who understands it if you can get them.
Okay, saving for your deposit is one thing, and in fact, there's a lot of literature. There's even a lot of courses out there about helping you. You mentioned the Barefoot Investor that teach people good budgeting and good money habits and money management. But then there's the whole next level of it, which is the process of actually learning how to buy a property, which is sort of glossed over in many places. People don't realize how many moving parts there are. So when did you first start realizing that there's even more to it than simply getting the deposit together, and you need to start learning the process of buying a house?
Day one of the Homebuyer Academy.
Oh, so but even before Homebuyer Academy, what made you then go and sign up for the course?
I have been a fanatic for houses forever, as I said before. And so I was listening to your podcast and a whole bunch of other ones. And you were selling me the idea of doing this course, and what you were telling us on the podcast was great. And here I am sending James a few links every now and then that he wouldn't listen to be honest.
The moving part to me found out literally when Nathan was like, we should do this. And I was like, oh, there's more to it.
Yeah, it was getting the buy-in. And then when we did it, yeah, it was amazing. I think, James, you can speak to that, but you were a bit hesitant at first.
Definitely. I was like, naive brain here, but I was just like, do we really need to? It seems a lot more straightforward than it is. And then as you go through it, it's like there are so many things you don't even consider.
Certainly anyone can buy a house. There's no doubt about it, James. You're right. Anyone could go and make an offer and buy a house. It's just what they don't know and those steps that they miss that could be ultimately the reason they fall off a cliff and lose that deposit.
What are some of the things that sort of stuck out for you, James, that you went, whoa, I hadn't even thought of that?
all the stuff on the due diligence checklist. I'm not kidding. I was a naive brain, but like finding out who you had to have on your team. I'm also someone who loves to just trust everyone because I just think that everyone's out for your good. And then slowly realizing, I'm going to quote you here, the agent doesn't work for you. That's another thing. Again, figuring out what you want to look for. What are your non-negotiables? There's a countless list of things.
I'm so glad because many first-time buyers get frustrated when they feel like the agent is working against them or they're not getting service from the agent. So I'm glad that one really landed with you. It's our number one Home Buyer Academy principle, and that is the agent doesn't work for you. They work for the seller and their job's to get the highest price. Don't get cranky at them if they're doing their job.
I think I quoted that so often, yeah.
Yeah, it changes your mindset, doesn't it?
Especially when our parents are sitting in the background telling us to do things to the agent that you're like, I'm just going to burn a bridge over.
Oh, that's interesting because we talk about assembling your crew. You had some other people in your ears. How did you manage and balance that?
This was probably the most valuable thing about the whole course, and having you guys as well every week helping us out, is that we had so much confidence in ourselves in what we were doing. And so when people were giving us advice, we knew whether to take it or whether we felt comfortable just politely saying thanks for that, but we don't need to. So ultimately we went away and bought the house, and some people had some comments, but we're very solidly happy with what we bought, how we went about it. So yeah, there's no regrets at all.
I just got that little mum chill, Veronica. We talk about this pride that we get when people get through that process and they're really happy with what they've done. It just gives me a little chill.
We met Nathan pretty much every week at Campfire, and we knew James was in the background. No, we love the fact you turn up because you turn up every week diligently. And this is milk us. This is what it's all about. You know, we're here to help. You brought your links, and it was tough because the market dialed up. I remember the end of last year, it was like the end of 2024 in Melbourne was a really flat market. You weren't quite ready, were you? But then things really changed. And so you guys had to step it up and you had to be on the front foot. So I'm curious, from your perspective, tell us about the search process itself. I know that you had to change location a little bit, but what was involved in that? How did you go about doing that?
Yeah, so we had a few suburbs that we were looking at because we wanted to buy a house and there's not enough stock that comes up. We were in one place and completely went the other side just by looking in different areas. And then we decided we liked a different suburb that we were originally looking in. And then from there, we kind of realized in that suburb, we were a bit outpriced of what exactly we wanted there. So then we made a compromise in the location within that suburb and ended up in I suppose, a less desirable place. But for us, the compromise made a lot of sense. And ultimately, we bought a house.
Because you did a lot of work. And I remember in Campfire, we worked a lot through the 3 Ps, which, of course, are the 3 areas that you can compromise on or can't compromise on, depending on what's non-negotiable. And I remember you working through the discussions that you were having with James about where were the compromises and why would that work or that wouldn't work. There were some really robust conversations around those 3 Ps. And where you ended up, I think, just having followed your thought process through the whole thing, you got the right compromises for you.
I think so. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. We compromise on everything.
And I think it's important to understand that it is a game of compromises, really, but it's the right compromises, right? And so it's working through what your options are to make sure you get the right thing. I mean, you could have at any time decided, you're going to buy a unit or a townhouse, but instead you sort of adjusted slightly your location and stuck to your goal of buying a freestanding house that one day you can renovate. And all the land sizes were pretty much the same. We were talking about 320-ish, something like that, square meters, yeah? Freestanding homes in suburbs, we'll say the northern suburbs of Melbourne, we'll say that, right? And I remember looking at quite a number of them, all with some period appeal, but definitely needing work. And some of them were really tiny. One was, I think, 2 bedrooms. And the one you ended up buying was quite a substantial home. Like you can reconfigure that and do quite a lot under the roof without actually having to extend. So in terms of over time, you've got more options and less pressure to do extensive or expensive renovations in the short term. And these are all part of that, what we call the 3 Ps. It's the position, the price, the property itself. There's always elements of compromise, and some things compromise more than others. And it's very rare that we'll go out and buy exactly the property that we had in mind when we first set off.
No matter whether you got 500,000 or 5 million,
we've all got to compromise on something, and it's a matter of landing on what's the right blend for us and then moving forward with confidence once you know that. But also part of that is it's being open-minded, but also doing the research, getting out there, looking at properties, getting out there and experiencing and keeping track of what sold prices were. And I know that You did a proper pricing analysis every time you went for a property. But in that process, you must have gone from sort of thinking, well, I'm confident I'm going to get this type of house in this suburb, and then you ended up getting something a little bit different. Is there anything in that process of going from what you really thought you were going to buy to what you were confident and you knew you were going to buy that you would think is really valuable for other first home buyers to know?
I'm not sure if this ties into it, but I did mention it slightly. Something that is extremely valuable is actually trying to figure out what things will sell for or like doing the property research to try and figure out what your specific property will sell for. Because there were a couple we were looking at where we were like, this is priced at this point, but based off of other houses, there's no point even trying for it because it's going to go well above our range at that point there. And it is still it might not be in the long run, but at the time, it's still a bit of an investment and a cost to do building and pests and all the due diligence behind it. So if you have the time to do it, try and figure out and do your price research.
Yeah, and you're right, Veronica. I remember, Nathan, you'd come with a really well thought out, we've got a tool that helps you do the pricing analysis, and you'd come with your comparable sales, with the superior and inferior aspects of those comparable sales, and really have a very clear, and you were looking at us to be a sounding board, but you really had worked that process through. I'm going to throw in there, I think, would it be fair to say, Nathan, that one of your big aha moments through the process was the auction? So the learning that you got through each of those auctions that you guys went to, whether you bid or didn't bid, because I remember that very last one, you just had you had all of the strategies down, you had all the tactics down, you had a toolkit that you were able to draw on. And I think that was a very different position to be in from the first auction that you went to. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely, actually. Yeah, so read Veronica's book 2 or 3 times and then had all of those meetings with you guys as well, getting that advice from you at the different auctions that we did, because we had quite a number of auctions that we were successful for. But yeah, by the time we came to our the last one, we knew what we were going to do. We honestly didn't think that we were going to buy it. So we also had that in the background and just like, oh, we know what to do, we'll go. And so we had our poses, we had our positions. We had talked about the strategy a few days before, how we wanted to do it based on what we'd seen and understood from what we could read in between the lines from the agent. And we did it. And my leg wasn't shaking as nearly as much as it was the first time I bid, that's for sure.
That's fantastic. I remember meeting you after one of the campfires, and there was a property that you had missed out on at auction. And this is what the market did. It suddenly got very competitive in your price range, didn't it? It really went nuts. And you were asking for feedback. You gave me the blow-by-blow description of what had happened at the auction and how did I go? And I'm like, I actually couldn't fault you. I think you're a really good student. But part of that is about learning, like reading my book 3 times. That's fantastic.
Every time before an auction.
Every time before an auction.
I would be like, yep.
Actually, what gets me and what people don't realize is that when you go to auction, you are dealing against other buyers are not educated and experienced generally. But if you're against a buyer's agent, they should be, not always, but they should be. But the agent, the selling agent and the auctioneers, they do this every single week. They know exactly how this all works. And as buyers, you are really unequally matched there, whereas you were doing your homework and really getting yourself up to speed really, really well. And so I'm very proud of you for that. And I was very excited to hear that you did ultimately buy at auction. It wasn't like an after auction or a pre-auction or a private treaty.
They're always so shocked to say, oh, you bought it at auction. How'd you do that? And I'm thinking, how do you buy a house not at auction in Melbourne?
In Melbourne, yeah, it's a really good point.
It's very true. But also you've got to deal with, despite the fact that there's all sorts of legislation around underquoting, it still happens. And so it is a very difficult process. Like, I think, James, you were saying it's really doing that homework at first to work out whether you're in the hunt for that property or not, so that you're not, wasting your building and pest inspections.
Emotional energy as well. There's a lot that goes into preparing yourself for an auction and committing to lots of conversations that go into, are we going to go for this one? And how much are we going to go to? And what process are we going to follow? And, understanding the agent's way of doing things. There's a lot of emotional energy that goes into that.
And are we going to risk missing out again? Like that failure and that fear of loss and the pain of that is not pleasant. So, to keep fronting up and keep on keeping on and holding your own faith in the work that you're doing. That's why we're particularly proud of you, like proud mums.
Yeah. It could be easy to throw up your hands and go, it's too hard, let's put the money in the stock market. And I think, this is something that I'd really like people to take away from this conversation is you didn't buy the first property that you went for. And that wasn't because you didn't do all the right things in the right order. It was because somebody else had more money and they threw more money at it. But what you did was use that information to recalibrate and to adjust and to work out, okay, well, we've got another data point now. That's another sale, and we know a lot about that property, and we're going to bring that into our analysis. And you just toughed it out and kept on going, and you did get the outcome because you kept sticking to the process and learning from each of them. And I think that for me, if anyone is thinking, oh, I've missed out on a few properties, I'll never buy, you can and you will, as long as you keep learning from each opportunity that you've got to learn from.
Yeah, trust me, we had our fair share of feeling defeated and feeling like we'd never be able to get something. And eventually, yeah, as I said before, when we were going for this property, we had so many things already prepared and we understood what we needed to do so much faster. So it was much less stressful by the time we got to that point, and less emotional investment as well, which was half the battle when we were losing the other ones. So yeah, definitely agree.
So what did it feel like when you actually, the hammer fell to you at that point of time? What did you do?
I remember Nathan turns to me and I'm like, is he going to pass out? He was like shaking. I was like, okay, calm down. We're still going to sign the contract.
Because he was so calm during the auction. I know he was very focused on being calm during the auction.
He had the stern face on during the auction, but as soon as it actually went through, it was like that dropped and it was like this excited panic.
Oh.
I punched him. I was like, we just bought a house. It was not real.
You punched him. That is so cute. So you haven't settled yet, have you?
We've got another month-ish.
Another month-ish to go. And so there's all the preparation that goes on between now and when you actually settle and then move in. So you don't actually have a mortgage yet. You haven't sort of then graduated that point of having the debt yet.
Not yet.
We're actually in a environment of interest rates going down, which is much nicer than for buyers, say 2 years ago. All that's ahead of you. Final question to ask you for this is really, what advice do you have for someone who's thinking about doing the first home buyer course, but sitting on the fence, thinking that, oh, I don't know, do I really need to do it? Do you have any advice for them?
Do it.
Just a man of few words.
Push yourself over, do it. Like I think I said it before, but there is so much that you will get out of it.
Absolutely. It's worth a lot more than what you pay for it. And the access to you guys every week is also amazing. So all of this combined, and the question board, the stepping through everything to make sure you're doing the right order is really important. And you can listen to the podcast till the cows come home, but until you see it on the modules and you step through your videos and your instructions and all the resources, you're not going to see the full picture and be able to complete the picture, I suppose, or summit the mountain, as you'll say. And then just that confidence piece in yourself, so important, because our family are very respectful of what we want, but still they were very trying to be quite persuasive about certain things. And that, as I said before, is just invaluable to be able to back yourself in and know that what you're doing is the right way.
That's really cool. And particularly that bit about having the confidence to drown, or I guess zone out when there's that sort of unhelpful, well-meaning but unhelpful advice coming your way. I think the other thing too, I just wanted to sort of ask you about before we wrap up, was that you had to keep getting back on the horse, like we talked about earlier, about you just had to keep the faith, and you got despondent. I think you used the word despondent, or was it despair at some point, Nathan? It's hard. It's really hard when you're seeing prices rise and you're so close. I mean, so many times you were not just got outbid, but you were the underbidder by one bid, like you were that close. Some people would, I would imagine, second guess what they're doing and just think it doesn't matter what we do, we're always going to miss out. But I guess you held on to the dream. Would you say that just knowing that you were on the right track and just persisting, what kept you persisting in those darker moments?
I guess we knew what we were looking for. We knew the compromises we had to make when we realised that we couldn't get what we were looking for at each stage. It wasn't just one time. And so it was just a matter of going, we didn't get this one, so what are we going to do to get the next one? And yes, there was an element of waiting, but we weren't doing nothing every time we missed. We made an adjustment to our expectations or price or whatever it was at every point.
Look, that's a really important point.
I think that's admirable.
Yeah, that you raised there too. And I know we did talk about it at Campfire every week as well. A lot of people just think, oh, I'll just have to keep going and eventually I'll find it. But when prices are rising, you do have to adjust all the time. Because if you just keep thinking, well, it's going to eventually be my turn, you get further and further away from the market. So, I think you were great students in that regard. You took the advice. It wasn't always easy advice to take, but you did take it because I guess that's what we're bringing is our years of experience. And it's sort of like, oh, I know it's not what you don't want to hear, but we're going to give it to you anyway. But you guys applied it. So I just want to say congratulations. We are absolutely thrilled for you. I know that this house is going to last you many, many happy years. You're going to be able to add value to it and be very, very happy there. And we're just totally thrilled for you.
So, James, what was your biggest aha moment out of all of this process?
With the course itself, I think you'll realise that the value is there once you get to the end of the process. I was very hesitant at the start because obviously I was in my saving period, and I didn't realise what value this could give. But at the end, it's definitely worth it.
When you say it's definitely worth it, specifically how?
Firstly, there are many things that I would have agreed with that are now non-negotiables that could have dropped our value in our house. So that's one way. Speaking to someone like a buyer's agent costs thousands, I think. Getting pretty much similar or like advice is another way.
And the value of the property. Yeah.
Oh, and you're also spending $1 million, $1,000 in the end is nothing.
Yeah, I hear you. So basically what you're saying is that for the value of the property, to do it without advice is insane. I mean, you're spending $1 million or thereabouts on a property. To do it just like on a whim without learning the process or getting any advice is a bit insane. But also $1,000 really to get access. We're two of the most experienced buyer's agents in the country. So you could tap into us and our brains and our experience for an absolute fraction of what it will cost you to hire a buyer's agent. And in fact, we often say it's the next best thing to having a buyer's agent for that very reason. So we are stoked that you found value in that.
So happy for you. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you both.
And thank you for sharing your story for others as well.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
Too many first-home buyers are leaving money on the table and hurting their future selves because they don't know how to do things in the right order. That's what we do. We teach you the exact steps you need to take and support you along the way.
We help you move from a state of information overload to feeling excited and in control. You'll learn a clear step-by-step process that takes the guesswork out of buying your first home. You'll know exactly what to look for, who to talk to, and how to navigate every stage with confidence, avoiding costly rookie mistakes along the way.
We've created your first home buyer course, a 10-module self-paced course plus online mentoring. Now, the course only costs $990 and you get direct access to us every week. You can share the link of any property you're thinking of buying and we can help you work out whether it's an A, B or C grade or a no-go zone. We even help guide you through your negotiations.
Trust us, you will buy a hell of a lot better with our guidance and you'll overpay a lot more than the cost of the course if you don't know what you're doing.
Thanks for joining us. If you've enjoyed this podcast, we encourage you to join our Facebook group. It's called Your First Home Buyer Guide Australia, and it's your opportunity to connect with us and ask us your questions, which we will answer, meaning you can make sure that you're not getting led down the garden path. We hope to see you there soon.